Today we are focusing on movement, specifically in gunfights. Today I will try to give you knowledge that will help you stay alive. Jabs and jukes you can use so you don't end up dead. This is the road to winning, and we're starting at the beginning, really? Maybe the middle? It definitely isn't the end, though. No, don't ask me why I decided to open the video by singing. I don't know either. Let's get into this. Right now you're saying, holy Jesus, he's finally releasing another Crucible class. Why did it take 5 years? Well, I was busy. Additionally, this topic is huge. I started off with just movement, started breaking it down, but that would have to include things like map movement, which would require a deep dive into how every single map works, high traffic areas, flanking routes, engagements at different parts of the map, including different pieces of cover, and when to use them depending on what angles the threats are coming from and what weapons those threats have. Do you see what I mean? I had to cut this down and revise and cut and revise, and then I got super busy, and then I murdered my finger, and it's basically just been a massive cluster. Anyway, let's get into it. So movement during gunfights. Since it's actually somewhat of a wide topic we're covering, let's make sure we do actually start at the beginning. There are 3 to 4 fundamental reasons you should be moving during a gunfight. Number 1, to throw off your enemy's aim. Number 2, to move closer to or into cover. Number 3, to move to make the enemy's cover less effective. Number 4, to aggress for a melee. This is kind of a subset of number 3 and is now relatively dangerous with shotguns in play. Kind of number 5, we'll go into a bit of CQC and how these concepts apply there and are a little bit different. Your different movement tools to achieve these objectives are crouching, strafing, short hopping, class jumping, sliding, and running. 6 tools. 2 let you reliably shoot while using them, strafing and crouching. Short hopping lets you attack while using it at the expense of in-air accuracy penalties. Sliding lets you fire after the input. Class jumping locks you out until you finish your jump input, and running locks you out completely until you end the animation. Before we go more in depth, I see people doing this all the time, and I just want to cover this super basic ground rule. Let me make it very clear. You should never be in the air without a reason, and you should never be in the air in a gunfight outside of CQC, apart from using a jump to get to cover. In-air accuracy penalties are a thing, and more importantly, aerial targets have very predictable movement patterns. This makes it insanely easy to hit headshots on them. Stay on the ground, it's harder to hit you. Number 1. So you want to make people miss, do you? Well, mid-gunfight, your main 2 tools to achieve this are crouching and strafing. First off, I see way too many people strafing like this. Just a simple back and forth. If this is all you can manage currently while thinking about everything else that you need to do in a fight, that's fine for now. For the future, work on making the changes in direction random. Don't just go 4 feet left, 4 feet right. If you're struggling to keep it random at the moment, make this a set strafe. Learn a set muscle memory strafe that you do in every single gunfight. Here's an example. 2 feet left, 4 feet right, 1 foot left, 3 feet right. This strafe is long enough that it'll be rare that an open gunfight lasts longer than it. And honestly, if your fight is taking that long, you probably want to disengage just because other people are going to be coming, and since you're ADS, you're likely getting flanked. Strafing is a double-edged sword, albeit your edge is blunted and theirs is sharp. Strafing makes it much harder for an enemy to hit you, and slightly harder for you to hit them. As always, try and make this a natural part of gameplay. Do it in PvE. It actually does increase your PvE survivability a bit too. Now level 2 of this progression is adding in crouches. There are 2 ways to use crouches or teabag shotting to make people miss. The first is at long range. This isn't a simple spam crouch matter. If you just teabag at max speed, good players aren't going to miss you because your head is still a predictable target. Additionally, if you crouch, your strafe is slower, so spamming crouch at long range is usually just overall detrimental. This is using random or strategically placed crouches to make your opponent miss shots. It's especially relevant when hand cannon and scout dueling. Omegalol who uses scouts in late 2018, this isn't Mida meta. Once you feel comfortable with your strafe, try to integrate this. When you feel confident with both strafing and random crouches, then start to work on dodging hand cannon shots like Neo. And when I say dodging hand cannon shots like Neo, I mean timing your crouches and strafes with your enemy's shots in order to make them miss.
The second variant of the teabag shot is for CQC primarily, and is mostly relevant in SMG fights. Granted, these are much less common now, but I'd be remiss not to cover it. This is the straight up spam crouch as fast as you physically can. Console hunters, you'll have to be careful with this one, as I believe double tapping the stick causes you to dodge. Not sure if it causes other class ability activations though. The aim of this isn't to make your opponent miss your model at the ranges that we're talking here. It won't really make people miss you, it's simply to make your head as erratic a target as you can. You literally want every possible headshot you can get converted into a body shot, or in best case scenario a miss, to inch out every 0.1 of a second time to kill benefit that you can. If you're on PC, I'd recommend using hold to crouch, as it allows you to do this much faster. Personally, my crouch key is C, and I hit it with my thumb as my little finger ends up dying if I do stuff like this with it. Adapt it to your needs. A small note on sliding. Yes, it sometimes is a tool that you can use in an open fight, but it's rare that it's a good idea, and it usually involves timing it with enemies finishing reloads or other animations, and to dodge a first shot, or sometimes to reposition you and let you re-engage, i.e. stall for time since you were missing shots, off your mouse mat, flustered, or whatever. This specific maneuver is a lot more difficult to pull off with a controller just because of the nature of how flicking your mouse works as opposed to using a thumbstick. Onwards to number 2. Find cover. In your gunfights, you want to be utilizing cover to make your opponent's job as difficult as possible whilst keeping yourself safe. This translates into always moving to any position that you can. Note that you can. There's no point moving in a straight predictable line towards far cover if you die before you get there. That makes it harder for your opponent to hit you. Another thing to note here, cover isn't only a wall. A wall is good cover, but equally it could be a box, a staircase, a teammate, or anything else. Your job is to break line of sight or restrict your vulnerable areas. Remember to be creative and fluid. Cover during a gunfight is a careful dance between you and an enemy. One moment's cover can be vulnerable the next, and something you wouldn't think of as cover might be of use. Even if your cover just puts minor pressure on the enemy to be more precise with their shots, it's doing something. Finally, remember that cover is a tool. When I'm in a gunfight, I'm not running a set-in-stone checklist of acquire target, find cover, fight. It'll change from moment to moment. I might be more in cover and sacrifice it for a strafe or a slide if I think that will gain me more advantage. Especially in a defensive situation, your options for moving into cover can change and be more open. This will also depend on whether you have reliable teammates or not, and whether you have to fight to get into that cover. In a quick play situation where my team are blueberries, my objective in a defensive fight is to disengage as fast and safely as I can. This means if I have the option to slide, short hop, or run into cover to get there faster, I will do it every time unless I feel I can turn the fight without doing so. Contrast this with comp, where I have teammates that I can trust, who I'm informing of my enemy's location and health as I fight into cover in order to give them a chance to get the kill. Even again, contrast that with a quick play situation against a good opponent, where if I run, I'll get 3-tapped. If I fight, I might be able to juke or flinch off 1 or 2 shots, allowing me to strafe my way into that cover where I couldn't have run. These kinds of situations might also change the choice of cover that you take. The fluid nature of cover means that an area that would be very dangerous to hold or take in a quick play game could be very viable in a comp setting. To illustrate, let's examine holding mid on cave on Radiant Cliffs with good teammates versus with blueberries. We shall use this wonderful map by Relkit to do so. With good teammates, let's say I'm holding at the stairs down to cave from Oculus or mid. I have the stairs as cover, and I can retreat towards Sniper's Nest if necessary. My teammates are holding junction, looking down towards A, one in Snipers in case they try to flank since they have meadow spawn. If they push my angle, I can move towards Snipers while my teammates at junction and Snipers kill them as they come down the stairs chasing me for the kill. In this situation, I'm in a very safe and defensible position with routes to retreat as my team backs me up. If we conversely put me with blueberries, pit becomes a death trap. I'm in a position close to the enemy spawn that's open to being flanked, and I end up with no safe route of escape except for chancing the short hop up from pit towards junction. This crosses the mid lane from Oculus and thus is incredibly unsafe, plus I have to jump and become a headshot magnet. My other options would be to run to Snipers and get pinched between the mid push and enemy spawn, or to run for pool or blue tunnel and get shot in the back from mid lane. Number 3. Apply pressure. This is taking the proactive role in a gunfight and is largely situational. In terms of what you actually do, it's about moving to reduce the effectiveness of your enemy's cover and/or cutting off their lines of escape. Now, as to its situational nature, if you both see each other in the open, both engage, and you're losing, you should not be applying pressure. You're on the defensive and your objective is to disengage or open lines of escape. So if you start winning, maybe you hit a hot zero mobility strafe and your enemy missed their hand cannon shot. You should now have a health advantage. This advantage means that you can relatively safely start to apply pressure by moving to invalidate enemy cover. This also means you have to know your own skill level and feel the level of latency in that specific fight, or the previous fights with that person. Those factors will determine how confident you are that you won't give up the advantage you've gained by missing a shot. Now, part of this pressure is psychological as well. If you aren't facing skilled opponents, you start winning a fight, and then you apply pressure, taking them from a more comfortable cover fight that's easy to disengage from, to an open fight. There's a good likelihood that they'll start missing more and generally making less measured decisions as they panic. This, of course, diminishes the more skilled your opponent is, as they will have more experience with those high-pressure situations. An easy way to see this is in your own play. I noticed that if I take a full 1 to 2 week or more break from playing, I have a bunch of stress responses during PvP. I experienced this a ton when I stopped playing for 6 months before Warmind. My adrenaline would get going, my hands and aim was twitchy, my thought process wasn't as measured and calm. This goes down the more you get used to playing. Number 4. Melee, the old 1-2. Right, well this one is obviously a bit spicy in the current meta. It's not too complicated though. First off, know that a standard melee does 100 damage. Melees will 2-hit an enemy guardian. Your checklist for a melee is roughly as follows. Am I in range? For this you need to know your melee ranges. The standard melee is 4 meters. Nova Warp is 5.5 meters. Laser Lock is nigh infinite but does 70 damage. Is my enemy low enough? You don't want to get into slap fights. It's generally not a good idea. In terms of relevant info, Hunters melee fastest since they're that kid who shadow boxes all the time and tries to convince you that they do martial arts. Then Titans, since they just lift heavy and neglect their plyo work. And Warlocks melee slow because they spend all their time reading books so their small spaghetti arms get tired. If you use a melee, you generally want to use it as a finisher. Shotgun melee is a common combo that's good to have in your muscle memory. Same thing with a sniper. You can hit 2 140 hand cannon body shots into a melee, 1 head 1 body with a 150 hand cannon, and 1 head 1 body with a 180 hand cannon. Those combos should kill the majority of Guardians. Number 5. CQC applications. Well, in CQC, the emphasis changes. We don't need to worry as much about in-air accuracy, and the focus changes to bamboozling our opponent to try and get off damage safely, especially in a shoddy meta like this. One standard rule: never be in the air outside of CQC. Inside of CQC, being airborne becomes a tool to try and make sure that you are somewhere the enemy doesn't expect. This isn't to say that if you get in CQC, you always jump in every situation. Much of CQC is based around baiting corners and doorways if you're the aggressor, or using everything you have at your disposal to put down safe damage while disengaging by putting cover between you and your enemy ASAP, if you are on the defensive. When it comes to doorway baiting, there are different levels of it. The first is simply going through a doorway, then turning around, sliding to get off radar, and re-engaging with a shotgun, snipe melee, nade melee, or whatever else. Level 2 is jumping or hovering above the door. This is effectively the standard set play. Above that, people generally become smart enough not to push doorways, and in a comp setting, they'll call out your position and get teammates to flank you. In terms of more sudden or open fights, jumping, especially as a hunter, is invaluable. Anything you can do to rapidly change your position is good, preferably while allowing yourself to fight. This is why melee range dodges on hunter generally aren't smart. You will often find, as a hunter especially, that a quick ability jump up will cause somebody to miss a shotty and allow you to secure a melee and a kill. At higher levels, of course, people aren't going to miss a CQC shotty at all. A lot of what you're generally going to go for depends on class and weapons though. If you're a hunter, aerial play is good. Just be careful with shotties since they have bad inner accuracy penalties. You might be hovering 1 meter above somebody, but because you're in the air, you deal their shield and damage instead of one-hitting them. As a warlock, you can very easily float above doorways, which other classes find more difficult to do, and also telegraph more as they make much more noise when jumping. As a titan, you're in the middle, and on PC, you have access to skating for quick dodges and bursts of speed to, say, outrange a shotty before sliding back in towards them for the kill as an example. You additionally have access to your wall, which can potentially block off entire CQC corridors or give you more cover if you need it, as well as giving you an effective juking point, where the enemy is in danger of getting too close to the shield and getting burned, thereby turning the fight in your favor. If you have a snipe, you're likely going to want to avoid the aerial play as much unless you really barrel stuff somebody. With a hand cannon, your game becomes rapid disengaging, with quick flicks back if you're on PC, or just a full disengage if you're on console. All of this is also dependent on enemy weapon. You're going to need the reaction time to see that white shoddy light of death and react to it fast. You're also going to need to be able to note classes. Is that a warlock that you're tussling with? Time to play your cover really hard to bait that supernova. A hunter? Okay, gotta watch out for smoke nades. In CQC in general, the rule play your cover is honestly even more important than normal, as every single CQC fight is a high pressure situation. That one shot that you make someone miss is easily the difference between life and death, especially if it's a duel of shotguns. Final key takeaways. Play your cover, learn to strafe, apply safe pressure, do not tunnel vision. Those are the 3 things that I want you to take away from this if you take away nothing else. Anyway, I hope this overall helped you up your movement game a bit, or gave you some more ideas for things to chuck into your game to make yourself a more evasive and annoying person to play against. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one, and I hope you have a great day.